Inspired by the extraordinary beauty of the natural world, Helle Jorgensen's artwork is delightful and varied. From intricate assemblages of tiny crocheted forms referencing marine life to humorous sculptures that amuse and delight. With a background in biology, medical research and horticulture, Helle is a true investigator of materials. Her working materials consist of discarded, recycled or sustainably harvested materials, a conscious choice offering both limitations and freedom as she creates work with repurposed plastic bags, handmade twine and seemingly useless objects which she has been collecting for decades. Preferring a simple life, Helle works from her studio on her beautiful property in the Tweed Valley of New South Wales, surrounded by nature where she has the freedom to get lost in materials as each piece of work evolves intuitively through endless experimentation with different techniques. Helle Jorgensen is an artist and educator who encourages curiosity and experimentation. She has had many solo shows nationally and group shows internationally, including New York, Los Angeles, Washington and London. Her work has been published in many books and international journals. I'm really looking forward to chatting with Helle this evening and finding out more about her wonderful practice of art making. So let's get started. Hello, Helle.
Hello, Angela.
There was some long sentences in that introduction, wasn't there?
I can't believe that was about me. It was very touching. Thank you.
Oh, your work's beautiful. And I just, for everyone that knows, that we do a little test call, usually the night or the night before the night. And I get to learn so much about the artists during that. And then I never write or try and compose those little intro videos before that time because it doesn't feel genuine enough. And I do take from artist bios and previous writings and things like that, but I try and add as much of my heart as I can. But your work's just beautiful, Helle. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, so how it works is everybody that's watching, thank you so much for watching. We get you get the opportunity to ask Helle questions tonight, and you can do that just by leaving a comment in the comment section. So we'd love to hear what your comments are. Even if you agree, disagree with something, I'm sure you'll find tonight's conversation really entertaining. We've got Noni here from Fibre Australia. Hi, Noni.
Hello, Noni.
And Eva's here all the way from Sweden, so that is really cool. Hi, Eva.
Wow.
So feel free to pop a question up, pop a comment up. But for the people that aren't familiar with your work, Helle, would you mind letting people know a little bit about your work, your background as a biologist, and how you got into art making?
Yeah, sure. It's been a very long evolution. So I came to Australia from Denmark when I was 13 years old with my family, and I ended up studying biology at university, and then I did a lot of scientific and medical research, but I wasn't terribly happy doing that. So I ended up studying fine art part-time and horticulture as well, because I like to get dirty and have my fingers in the soil. And so it's sort of been a very long evolution of self-discovery, I suppose, and working out who I am and what I enjoy doing. So yeah, it's just been a progression of working out what it is that I really like to do. And it turns out that it's making things with my hands and being creative.
Yeah, I think that's gorgeous. I often feel we spend a lot of time in front of the computer and my hands just often itch to do something else. Yeah, just to really, yeah. We were at school pickup tonight and I found myself sitting on an embankment of grass. And do you remember back when you were a child and you couldn't just sit on grass without picking it with your hands and like twisting it or twining it or making a daisy chain. I found myself there tonight,
Yes.
like picking all this grass, and yeah, we have this constant need. Well, I have, makers maybe have a constant need to keep their hands busy.
Well, I think so. Yeah, I really enjoy making things with my hands, and I find that when I do, I enter into this sort of very relaxed state. So I'm sure scientists have done some studies on, maybe it's serotonin or some sort of neurotransmitter that is released when you're working with your hands. I'm not sure, but it's, I can see it happens to other people as well. So it is a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got Lisbeth here from Denmark. So she says, yes, you sound very...
Oh, goddag, Lisbeth. Ja, jeg er dansk, eller jeg var dansk.
Wow. That's gorgeous. We've got Bernadette hi B from the UK. That's awesome. And I always smile when Susan comes on because Mirralbark's just around the corner from me. And I always think, oh, hi, Susan. So that's awesome. And Annette from Tweed Valley in Scotland. That's cool.
Yeah, very cool.
Hey, Susan from New Zealand. Thanks for joining us. And beautiful Francie. Hi, Francie. And Venezuela. We've got such a broad range of countries listening tonight. So no pressure, Helle. No pressure at all.
That's extraordinary.
Yeah. Isn't it fantastic? So thanks everyone for joining us. Yeah. So I love the fact, so to go back to how I first discovered your work, and that was at the Fibre Art Textile Biennale, which was opened in Bairnsdale just recently in January, and it's just closed there. But it's coming up your way to Toowoomba.
Yeah.
And which is really cool that you get to see it.
Looking forward to it.
Yeah. And I was just mesmerized by your piece that you had submitted and it was accepted into this award, and it was called and I'm jumping ahead here, but I wanted to give people a sense of what you do, and then when they discover you, what I found most amazing was just how vast your work is. So it's from weaving, it's to collage, it's to crochet, it's to clay work, so much. What does it mean to you to be such a multidisciplinary artist? Like, how did that come about?
Well, I guess I have a very strong curiosity for all sorts of things, and so I get very easily bored. So I might start in one medium, and quite quickly I'll move on to something else. So quite often I have a whole lot of projects going at the same time in all sorts of different media. And I just find that each medium and what I learned from that medium sort of feeds into working with other media as well. So it all sort of comes together, bits of information from working with certain things, feed into each other, and I just learn so much more that way.
I read somewhere that you like to blur the boundaries between...
Well, that's true, yes. I really don't like categories and, the art craft judgments and, all those sort of categorizations. I really don't like that kind of thing. So I'm always trying to sort of elbow my way out of being categorized in any sort of way. And because I find it very restricting, and it doesn't seem very intelligent to me, really. So I guess that has a lot to do with why I'm sort of jumping all over the place all the time as well. It gives me the freedom to do that. Whereas if you're categorized as a fibre artist or a sculptor or whatever, people have certain preconceived ideas about those terms, and I don't think that's such a good idea.
The word dabbler comes to mind, and that comes to me from a talk that I once heard Mary Hetmansberger from the USA speak about.
Oh, yeah.
And do you know Mary's work?
Yes, I do. I've actually learned a lot from her books. Yeah, she's brilliant.
Yeah. Gave this gorgeous talk at a Fibre Arts Australia event one night, and I just remember sitting there going, yeah, it's okay to dabble. Like, her friends were more concerned about her dabbling than what she ever was until they brought it to her attention and said, well, you're a dabbler. And she sort of doubted herself about, well, am I a serious artist if I'm jumping from things to things? And then she just totally put a spin on it, went, well, you know what? No, I am a dabbler and I'm proud of it, and you should be too. And
it's interesting you should say that, because I used to worry about it too. And I thought, well, you know, I really should stick to one thing and really investigate that and learn everything about it. But I just realized that I have to be true to myself, and I've just find that quite boring. So I sort of thought, well, maybe it is okay. And after a while, I just learned to accept that that's the way I work. I was still able to, you know, produce work in quite a focused sort of way. So, yeah, it was just something I came to accept.
Yeah. Well, it's certainly working for you.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. Well, I feel like you go quite intense, like, into one thing whilst you're doing it. Yeah. And then and then it's okay.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I get very lost in it. Luckily, I have a very tolerant partner who, you know, brings me cups of tea and porridge in the morning. And yeah, I'm very lucky. Yeah. Spoiled in that way.
So he's learnt to accept your creative process.
Most definitely. And, you know, it works both ways. So I let him go surfing whenever he feels like it. So, you know, it's fine. It's a good exchange. Yeah.
Yeah, it is a good exchange. I think everything in life has to be an exchange, really. It's a give and take, isn't it? So you mentioned that one of your long-lasting pursuits is actually the pursuit to understand the creative process.
Yeah.
So what have you been able to discover so far during your career as an artist, or even just as a human being? I guess it doesn't really have to be artist, does it?
Yeah, no, that's right. I suppose the creative process has been very helpful for me to. I've used it as a way of self-discovery in a way. You know, as you age, you sort of you get to understand who you are better, and so the creative process has really been very helpful for me to be able to work out who I am, and I find it to be a really good place to resolve things that I don't understand, my environment, my relationships, and events in the world. I guess I sort of enter into an internal dialogue through that creative process, and because I'm doing a lot of repetitive work, I find that it's a really nice space where I can sort of think about things very clearly, and pretty much resolve things. So I'm not yeah, there's definitely, I'm very interested in that connection between working with your hands and what goes, the mental processes that go on in your mind. I'm sure that someone's done a PhD thesis on that somewhere. But yeah, so it's not so much something that I've discovered about the creative process, but I've just discovered that it's very useful for life. And I think art education in general is very useful for well, children especially, to work out who they are. And you know, we all need to know who we are. Basically, I think it's very useful to know that. So
Yeah.
yeah, I hope that makes sense.
I think it does. And I think and we're getting some, yeah, feel free to make a comment and let us know if it's making sense for you. But for me, I hear a lot of artists talk about their response to something. So their response to an event, a life event, coming of age, what have you. And I love that you talk about it not necessarily as a response, but as a way to resolve.
Yeah, to understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a good way of looking at it.
Yes. Yeah. I'm just trying to think what else. Yeah, maybe you can prompt me about the creative process and my work.
Yeah, for sure.
But it is really my life. That's pretty much how I conduct my life. And so I live a very simple, quiet life in solitude most of the time.
Yeah.
And I really need that space and that time to be able to cope with everything that's going on in the world. Especially things like climate change is, you know, something I constantly think about, and I'm sure a lot of other people do as well.
Yeah,
So
for sure.
yeah, it's I guess it's also a coping mechanism in some way.
Yeah. Art is therapy. Yeah.
Yes, it's a very cathartic thing.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a recent book out at the moment called How to Be an Artist, and I hear that it's very good. I might have to give it a read, but
Okay.
I think it talks about daily practice as well. Do you have a daily, like, do you have to be quite disciplined with your art practice, or is it something that just happens?
No, I'm not at all disciplined in any way, really. Quite the opposite, actually.
That's awesome.
I think you'll find me in the studio in my nightie till about lunchtime. So, no, as I said earlier, it is really just part of me and my life, and it's what I do every day. So I don't feel that I need to be in the studio for so many hours a day, because even if I'm not, I'm still thinking through projects and research and things that I'm working on. You know, I could be on my mower or fixing the fence or something or other, and still be working on some art piece or exhibition ideas or whatever research I'm doing.
Yeah.
So no, it's definitely not a discipline. It is just life for me, and it happens every day, all the time, pretty much. So yeah, they're not. So, you know, being an artist as you know, having a practice and being a person, they're sort of the same thing. They're not really separate.
Yeah, I totally understand what you're saying there. Yeah, for sure. Our lovely friend Lorna Crane's listening, and she totally loves the anti-discipline.
Yes.
You'd love that, Lorna. You two should get together. You could make an awesome collaboration. I think you guys would be awesome together. Mac asks, when you make your pieces, is it a very organic process, or where is there a lot of failures as opposed to finished pieces? That's a great question, Mac. Thanks.
Yeah, that is very good, actually. The way my process is basically I investigate materials and techniques. And so I tend to really work with the material, whatever it is, cardboard or plastic bags, for quite an extended period of time. And I use quite often very laborious techniques like stitching, crochet, etc. I'll be working with my hands. And so the materials, no, I've forgotten the question. Oh, yeah, that's right. Okay, so I just sort of work away quite intuitively without knowing what sort of outcome I'm going to get. And, I don't do sketches. I mean, I do sketches, but not necessarily for, a finished piece. I really don't know what I'm going to make. So I end up doing all these little experiments, and so I might have hundreds of well, they're not failures to me. Yeah, well, exactly, that image. They're all little experiments. But I found that during that process and having all these pieces, all of a sudden I start to see patterns emerge about the materials and about what I'm thinking. And all of a sudden, after spending endless hours working on something, I find that it comes together and I realize what it is that I'm doing. So it's sort of a reverse process.
Yeah.
I actually have to work with materials first for a long period of time. And then during that time, I get inspiration and I have this internal dialogue and I get ideas. And so from each little failure or experiment, I learn something new about the material and the technique. And then finally it sort of comes together. So you'll find that's part of the reason a lot of my work, the pieces are composed of lots of little pieces and they form a big whole.
Yeah, everybody's resonating with what you're saying, Helle. Yeah, I get it. The work speaks for itself. Yeah, that's beautiful.
Actually,
Bridget.
another thing too is that when I was first out of university, I worked in marine pharmacology, and I used to look after a collection of blue-green algae, and I used to have to propagate them on agar. So we were interested in classification of these and properties and so on of these algae. And I think that sort of collecting and having collections and seeing patterns emerge is part of my scientific background, which is fed into my arts practice, which is quite interesting.
Yeah. I think I like the word liminal. So
so do I. It's a good word.
I know you love words. I'm going to get to some of your words.
Yeah, I love language.
Yes, language. Oh, but I feel like being liminal means you can just I think I watched like a TED talk on it once, don't you love a good TED talk as well? And it had like an island in the middle and then it had all these other little islands around and it was all drawing into the middle and it was like, this is what liminal means. I had to see the graph to understand it, but it's drawing on all of that life experience. And
yeah,
you wouldn't.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Yeah. Lorna's asked a question. She's asked, do you work to a specific space for the exhibition after you have a body of work or find the space first? Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah. Oh, it's a little bit of both. I have found with some of those big collections that I have, which are pinned onto walls, that because they're mostly 5 meters long
Yeah,
or
this is
longer.
huge.
And so, I have to think about, okay, can I actually hammer the pins into the wall? Will the piece fit, on the wall? So I may change the configuration of my collections to suit the space. But generally, I try not to have to do that. But sometimes, obviously, you do.
Mm. Talking about awesome words and exhibition spaces, your work, and I hope that I say this right, help me out,
Oh,
Paracosm.
Paracosm.
Yes, tell us
Yeah.
about that. Please tell us about that word and tell us
Yeah.
about that exhibition.
Well, it was a word that I discovered recently, and it basically, for me, it means it's like a pocket universe. So I have, well, it actually means having a very rich and detailed imaginary inner world. And I think it's mostly used for children, but I certainly have one as well. And it is the place that I go to when I'm working with my hands and thinking about what's going on around me, my environment and events and so on, and working with the materials and so on. So I enter this sort of paracosm. This is what I call it now.
Mm.
And yeah, it's a really wonderful place to be. That's mainly why I do what I do, just to enter into this place. You don't need to take drugs or anything. You can just enter the paracosm, which is fabulous. So it's a little pocket universe, basically.
Such a great word. It really is a great
Yeah.
word. I put it in the comments, and I hope I spelt it correctly, but it's is that where your work, The Forest Floor, came from? Is that an exhibition that you had called
Yeah. Yeah, so I had an exhibition, a solo exhibition last year called Paracosm, and the whole exhibition was really about me working through the grief that I was feeling because my father had just passed away. Oh, had passed away a couple of years ago, and I found that I became very fragile during that grief, and I did a workshop with Shona Wilson, the land artist, at a friend's place down at Mullumbimby, and she has 1,000-year-old trees on her property, and with huge buttress roots. They're absolutely magnificent organisms. And I found myself just sitting in amongst the buttress roots and staring at the forest floor and looking at the insects. And it was so complex, and I felt very secure. And I had a bit of an epiphany, I guess. And I thought, I sort of felt like everything was okay. It was going to be okay. And I was embraced by this giant mother tree. And I felt connected to the earth. And I sort of began to understand death and decay and rejuvenation and rebirth and so on. So it was quite an optimistic sort of feeling I had. And so it really helped me with the grief. And so I ended up making the forest floor because of that. And because a lot of the other pieces in the exhibition were related to taking my father to hospital and him having sort of all sorts of treatment. For example, Viscera and Breathe Easy and those other pieces in that exhibition were about his illness. And then I also did a lot of pieces in that they were all found objects basically. And what happens to these found objects. I quite often find them on the side of the road. You know, they might be partially decayed. Anyway, I used all these sort of things. So there was a lot of death and decay in the rest of the exhibition, but the forest floor was really about rejuvenation and joy, optimism, reverence as well.
That's a great word too, isn't it?
Mm.
Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, and it's just stunning. I've got some close-up details here of the forest floor for people to look at, and they're just so intricate and draws you in, doesn't it? It's well balanced.
This collection is made from discarded tapestry wool. And you know, people quite often throw out those tapestry kits. You find them in the op shop, although they're becoming quite rare now. But in the past, I used to find these little sort of packages of harmonious colours of tapestry wool.
Yeah.
And there'd be a sort of piece of canvas with a printed motif that you would embroider. Well, I've been collecting that wool for many, many years. And so all of those are made from discarded tapestry wool. So again, it's a waste material that I've found a use for. And because they're cut into quite short lengths, as you probably know, the pieces are quite small. That's one of the reasons why they're quite small.
Yeah, there's no waste.
No.
And just so the materials really dictate what you make, and what you make really dictates the finished outcome. It totally is reverse process.
Yeah, that's pretty much true. Yeah.
Yeah, that's gorgeous. I'd love to talk about your piece, Portrait of an Old Bag. And once a piece has completed, giving that work meaning, and whether that comes from you or whether that comes from the onlooker. I had a very maybe different take on Portrait of an Old Bag when I first saw it and my first response to it. And if you like, I'm happy to share that with you. We've got a little documentary coming out of the Art Textile Biennale, and I actually do a little bit of talking about your piece, which was a real honour to be able to speak to it. And I hope I've done it justice. But then after meeting you and knowing and learning that you've really got a big sense of humour, and I was laughing at myself thinking, I wonder if I went like really too deep here, and if you're just having a good chuckle going, that's not what I was about at all.
Before you go any further, it's called Self-Portrait as an Old Bag. So, there you go. Yeah, it's me thinking about my mortality.
Self-portrait. Well, it really challenges what a self-portrait means.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah, definitely.
I love that about it. I'll pop it up on the screen so people can see this gorgeous piece. And it's a beautiful, like without a title, it's a beautiful piece. It really, really does draw you in. Helle, would you like to say what it was, like how this came to be?
Sure. There is one thing I wanted to say, actually. I've always wanted to enter art prizes, and quite often you can only enter a painting. And so, for example, the Archibald. So so I thought, okay, well, this is my way of doing a self-portrait. And so it was part of Paracosm, and it was basically just thinking about who I am. And so it's quite transparent. And I think I'm probably quite a sensitive sort of soul. And so I'm not easily able to hide my feelings and so on. So you can see the little pieces inside, which are akin to organs or feelings, emotions. And I just love the expression "an old bag," you know, referring to an elderly woman, an older woman. I just think it's so funny to call someone a bag, you know. I actually did a whole series of artworks about bags.
Ah,
I made a bag for especially long things, and I made a bag for a snake with lid, and a bag for 3 eggs. Anyway, the bag is such a great word.
isn't it? Yeah.
So this self-portrait has some little sort of flimsy pieces hanging out as well, which are my response to the environment. You can see those little things hanging out. So that's sort of what's I'm emitting to the world. And the little anchor thing is my partner Chris, who keeps me tethered to the ground when I when I go off on a tangent. So that's pretty much it, really. It's just a very fragile piece, and I was feeling particularly fragile at the time I made it.
Yeah. It's made out of paper, really
very
delicate
paper yarn. Yeah.
And you do
strong as well. Once you start, the stitching, it becomes quite strong. So it's both fragile and strong at the same time.
Yeah, a bit like the human condition, really, isn't it?
Emotional baggage, the whole the whole thing.
Yeah, well, I really loved it, and I loved that there was a stone as well in that little pocket at the end of the. I referenced it as an umbilical cord, almost like or maybe
a lost
regret.
Child, I think.
Yeah, lost child, maybe something that you need to cut the cord of, something like that. But it's just beautiful, and I really love it. So thank you so much for sharing it. And it looked beautiful within the space, and it totally deserved to be there amongst the best. It was incredible.
Oh, thank you very much for those very kind words. Thank you.
No. Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I just really loved it. Yeah, it was really beautiful. It made me really think. And my husband really loved it too. He was there. He was gorgeous. He was like, this one. So
well, I think quite often if you have an artwork and there are all sorts of elements involved in that artwork, but the title can be another element. And so that's very much what I tried to do with that piece.
Yeah.
It just happened that way.
Yeah, exactly. Max says the ball of yarn is unfinished. I thought that's what it represented. So lovely that it's your anchor. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's actually not a ball of yarn. It's like a little cocoon, a little sack with a little pebble inside.
Yeah. It's just beautiful. So we'll post a link up to, or actually Fibre Arts Australia will post a link up to the documentary that we did about the exhibition, and they'll share it through their site. So and then we'll reshare their posts so everyone will get to have a look at it, and we go up into a little bit closer detail so people can actually hopefully see the stone inside. And
great. I can't wait to see it.
Mac, thank you very much for your questions. This is great. When you make, excuse me, all your little pieces, do you store them in a specific places before bringing them together, or is it not planned? For example, little drawers, March crochet, sea creatures. Yeah, let's talk about your studio. How tidy do you keep that studio?
Well, as you know from my graph of disorder, sort of the studio. Yeah, there it is. It's the classic sawtooth pattern. Over time, it just exponentially becomes more and more untidy, and then I reach a threshold when I can barely walk through the studio and I can't find anything, and then I have to have my tidying up session, and then the whole process happens again. So what I do now when I'm making all those little pieces is I usually have a little box of some sort, like a shoe box or something like that, and I put all my pieces in there as I make them, and then every so often I get them out and sort them all out and start looking at them, a bit like we've all played with our mother's jar of buttons. It's a bit like that. So yeah, I think the whole sort of displaying it on a table and arranging them, and that's very important, an important part of my process, because I start to see patterns emerge, and it's a little bit scientific in a way, in terms of classification of organisms. If you start to classify them, you can start to see evolutionary patterns and all sorts of physical patterns, and that's pretty much what I do with all my little pieces. When I see them as an entire collection, I start to see patterns and the possibilities of what I can do with it. And once I've worked out what I'm going to do with them, I exhibit them. Sometimes I sell them, and otherwise they go into a box in a cupboard labelled entropy collection or forest floor.
Oh, that's gorgeous. Well, Harriet also agrees. She's a beautiful weaver from up your way.
Yes, I love her work.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? And yes, she can. I think she's relating to the seesaw, or the mess, the chaos, and then the calm, the chaos and the calm. Yes.
Yeah. Actually, my studio is pretty tidy. I have it's all pretty much boxed away and sorted. It all has a place. But when I'm working, things come out of their boxes, and all of a sudden I can't find anything, and it's all over the place. I can barely walk through the place. But when I then get the energy to tidy up, I know where everything goes. So it's sort of a bit chaotic, but not the same.
Yeah. Yeah. Lorna says those rituals of disorder they're pivotal in art making. Yeah, in making. Yeah. Yeah, that's my excuse too, Lorna. I'm making. I can't do the housework. I'm making.
Well, yeah, housework is way down on the list of things to do. I'm not terribly house proud, I'm afraid. I've got better things to do.
Yeah, I think so. I think as long as you can survive and, people are well fed and, the hygiene's okay. I mean, we're creating.
Yeah. It's good for our immune system.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Organized chaos, Bernadette says. Yeah, you're so right. I feel like that all the time, Dee, as well. And what are you working on currently, Helle? What's your current fascination?
Well, there are quite a few. Well, I am very much concerned about climate change. That's always in my mind, and I wish it was in the minds of our politicians as well. But so I'm very much concerned about overconsumption, landfill, destruction of the environment, land clearing, etc., etc. And so that is part of the reason I live a simple life. I try to, and I had some work done on my house, my little house, last year, and I was absolutely appalled at the amount of packaging that was involved in the materials that came in. Huge pieces of timber were shrink wrapped, like Glad wrap. Yeah. And there were just endless boxes of cardboard and all sorts of things. Anyway, I started developing a bit of a fascination for the cardboard boxes because they have, they're really quite interesting abstract shapes when you start to deconstruct them. They have little flanges and slots and they're almost sort of symbols of our world, our consumption. All these little shapes, like handle shapes and perforated lines and so on. Anyway, so I started collecting all the cardboard, and I really like those abstract shapes. So I started putting together some collages using, well, actually, a lot of them are from household food and so on as well.
Yeah.
So you can see some of those flanges and so on.
Yeah.
So I started putting together all these little collages, assemblages, and I found that, again, I was going through this sort of internal dialogue. Some of these pieces were experiences that I'd had perhaps last few days, and they were my way of explaining what they were about. And so the materials sort of have little conversations with each other and in my mind. And
what's this one? Is this a king and a knife? Like, what's going on here? I love it.
I think that one is called Animal Orchestra. I'm still trying to work out why it's called that. It's basically, you can see that two elements are sort of having a conversation, and it's it's the internal dialogue of probably some conversation that I had with somebody, and I was trying to understand it.
I just see a king and like a fencer, and he's just stabbing the king, raw, like disagreeing about it, and that's just what I see. But
yeah, right, okay. He's got very big boots, and I see the crown is the little perforations.
Yeah. Have you seen South Park? It could be a little South Park dude, like he's got his beanie on.
but they are really a response to my environment and events and so on. Yeah,
they're fabulous, and the colors that you use and the composition, and it's just beautiful. We'll put a little link up in our in the thread here of a YouTube video that you made for Lismore Art Gallery.
Oh, yes, okay.
Is that okay if we put that link up?
Yes, of course. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Yes,
and that will show people, I think, your environment, and you talk about your collages and show that, and I just thought it was just so beautiful. Yeah, we have to share that.
Great. Thank you.
Well, I hope you keep creating those. Do you think that this will become another exhibition, or is it maybe a book? Or
no, it's definitely going to be an exhibition this year, I hope. With all the COVID complications, finding somewhere to host the exhibition is proving a little bit more difficult, but I'll work something out, and I hope to exhibit them before the end of the year, maybe middle of the year. I have quite a few pieces, so already I think I have enough for an exhibition.
Oh, wow.
I would like to make some 3D works as well out of the cardboard. Yeah. So, and also I'm doing some clay pieces based on the packaging as well. Wow.
There's no stopping you, is there?
No.
No stopping you. Susan would like to know how big they are, the collages.
Oh, they vary in size. Most of them are about A4, A3, A4 size. Yeah. So 30 centimeters by 40, or maybe a little bit smaller. I did also do a series with a lot of stitching as well. So you can actually see them behind me. Over there.
You can grab them
over there. Do you want me to grab one?
Yeah, grab one.
So this one, I'll put it on.
Oh, there, that's quite big. Yeah.
So
yeah, up a little bit, yeah.
So that one is called The Grey Suit, and you can see all the little bits of stitching there. And I went to see a fabulous film called American Utopia with David Byrne recently, and I made that in response because they were all his musicians, and David Byrne was they were all wearing grey suits, so that's inspired by that. But it's just interesting that they have the stitching element, which a lot of collages don't really have traditionally.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can't get away from stitching. I love stitching.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And what's to say a collage can't incorporate stitch? I think that's awesome.
Well, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd love to I know we're coming up to an hour, but I'd love to, I think that it goes quick, doesn't it? I would love to talk about your lofty thoughts, because I just feel like people need to experience lofty thoughts. So if I pop a picture of your lofty thoughts up here, and maybe we could send this or a caption like this to the politicians to maybe try and extract, or to try and brainwash them into doing something about the environment. What do you reckon?
What a brilliant idea.
I'll leave it up to you. I'll just give you the idea. You can do that. This is this is your piece here, which is, can you talk to it?
Sure. So on the left-hand side, you can see that there's a stool, a vintage or found stool, and it has a little brush arrangement on top of it. And so that's the lofty thoughts generator. So you sit on that, and you're supposed to be able to have lofty thoughts. You put the thing above the stool on your head, and that catches the lofty thoughts, and it goes through the processor, through the long tube, and the big sort of, that's it. And then you catch the lofty thoughts as they come out. And I do also have a lofty thoughts catcher. And actually I have safety goggles as well. Yeah, that's the lofty thoughts catcher. And I'm putting my safety goggles on. So they're my post-apocalyptic safety goggles that you're supposed to wear as well. And of course, but sometimes it fails, and that's where all the little tigglers come in that I made. So this is part of the instruction manual for the lofty thoughts generator and processor.
And so it comes with a full instruction manual, so in case anybody gets it wrong. It's politician-proof. Politician-proof.
So if you experience technical disobedience, you can grab one of those tigglers and tiggle yourself under the chin or whatever, and perhaps you'll be able to generate some lofty thoughts.
Oh, well, it's just how wonderful. I think we all take ourselves way too seriously, Helle, and it's just so charming to see someone. No, but sometimes in the art world, don't you feel like, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Don't get me started.
No, I'm happy to get you started on it.
No, I do think I'm very much a believer in things being egalitarian, and I think art is for everybody, and I would like to see it available to everybody, and to try and demystify the whole thing, because it's such a wonderful thing.
Oh, that's beautiful. Art is for everybody. Yeah, and what a beautiful philosophy. Well, you're certainly resonating with people. You know, like it's just, people just love it.
I think that suite of objects, I'm going to continue making those. I'll keep on finding things that I can add to that until I have, a huge collection of things. And so
I think so. I think you should. Reminds me a little bit of, are you familiar with the story of the BFG by Roald Dahl? And he has the trumpet and he blows the dreams at the children.
Oh, no, how lovely. No.
Yeah, it's really gorgeous. It's I love Roald Dahl. I sort of grew up with his books.
Yeah.
And when I
I
saw
remember
you,
one of his books where it had a brilliant title. It was called Life on a Rotten Log or Under a Rotten Log. Or maybe it wasn't him. It might have been somebody else. But I thought it was Roald Dahl.
it may have been. I'm just not familiar with that one. But yeah, I mean, I learned to read like with those books, and it was just when I saw your work, it was just beautiful. And I think that's the thing too. And we recently worked with Harriet, and I don't want to talk about or talk for Harriet, but she made this beautiful random weaving, and she described that you can just do any shape you like. And she did it with her children, and her kids were like, "Oh, it's this, Mum. It could be this," and the imagination just flourished, and that was beautiful. Yeah. So Harriet said, reminds me of a felter.
Oh, Anita Larkin. Yes. Her those musical instruments she's made with the felt are absolutely extraordinary. I think they were in the Tamworth Textile Triennale some years ago.
Oh, that's fantastic. Yeah, I'll have to look her up. I'm not familiar. So you guys weavers. Yeah, fantastic. Mm-hmm. Well, your exhibition, or the exhibition that your self-portrait of an old bag is coming to Toowoomba, and that'll be there on the 6th of April. So that's when it'll open, and so we'll pop a link in the description here about to the Toowoomba Regional Art Gallery that it's going to. So hopefully you'll be able to get there and you'll be able to see it, and anyone else in Toowoomba area would, it's worth the trip, definitely worth the trip. So I'm
looking forward to it very much, to see all the other entries and the winner, etc. Yeah, it'll be great.
Yeah. And if people could follow your journey, Helle, where's the best place to follow along? Is it Instagram, Facebook? I know you've got a website coming, or?
Yes, I'm currently building my website, so I'm hoping it'll be up and running within the next month. And so I think at the moment Instagram is probably the best place to to see what I'm doing, I guess. Yeah, Instagram.
Beautiful. Well, we've just popped a link up for you for your Instagram so we can all follow along. And yes, Philippa is looking forward to seeing more Lofty Thought accessories.
Accessories. That's it.
It is. And I want to learn more big words from you. And I think your work's absolutely beautiful. And your philosophy for life and humour and art is divine. So I really thank you so much for being part of our Friday Feature Artist interview series for this year. It's just been a real delight. But I would like to ask you, if you don't mind, if there was something that would encapsulate you as an artist or as a person, or a message that you'd like to be remembered for, what might that be?
I think I would like to think that people see me as authentic and genuine, and that my pieces are unique. That's very important to me, speaking with my own voice. And I'd also like to be remembered for using waste and trying to reconnect with plants and working with hands and so on, and showing other people that they can do the same thing, can enjoy that. But actually I haven't given that a lot of thought, to be honest.
I think that's what is beautiful. I think just there is no such thing as waste, is there? And look how prolific you can work without really buying anything.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it just requires a little bit of lateral thinking, a slightly, looking at things differently. And I think that's probably something that we all need to do today, to just think slightly differently to overcome some of the problems we're having.
Pop on your lofty thoughts generator, put it, and then maybe turn it in reverse for like a reverse process.
I need a dashboard. I'll have to make a dashboard with a few tiles.
I was going to say jobs. That'd be great.
Oh, funny.
Helle, well, it's just been delightful. I can't wait to follow your journey and to meet you in person. I think we'd have a really good chat and
yes,
make something and have a bit of a giggle over something ridiculous would be lovely.
Yes, sounds good.
Yeah.
Right up my alley.
Yeah, awesome. And have fun at the Toowoomba Regional Art Gallery. I'm sure you'll love it.
I will. I'm very much looking forward to that.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah, let us know what you think about it, and we'll post a link. Or Noni and Glennis will post a link to the exhibition as well for online for those of you that can't get there. So,
sure.
But for now, we play a little exit video, and it's everybody's chance that's been able to watch tonight and delight in your work and your philosophy on life and art, just to say a little thank you. And and we'll see everyone again next week for another beautiful interview. But Helle will remember this one for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. It's been a great pleasure. Thank you, Ange.
It's just I think it's just the beginning for us. I get the feeling.
Yes.
But I also get the feeling that anyone that gets the pleasure to meet you, like it almost feels like you found a new best friend. Do you get that a lot?
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
I guess I do. Yeah.
Yeah. You're beautiful. Yeah, you're beautiful. All right, Helle. Thank you.
Okay. Bye, Ange. Thank you very much.
Bye.
Bye.